Anxiety yabazali is quite understandable. Anxiety yomphakathi wonkana is really understandable because globally we're facing something esingakaze sibhekane nayo, and it's ravaging the economies and all sectors of life throughout the world. And akekho kahle hle ongaclaim ukuthi une experience on how to best deal with the issues of COVID-19. So we do things as and when sibona ukuthi ku-right ukuzenza, but also learning from other countries that have experienced the surge COVID-19 before us, particularly the countries such as China and other countries who have had to deal with the worst when it comes to COVID-19. Now, there is a huge debate in society whether we should be opening schools or not. Some believe ukuthi akufanele ngabe sivula ikole ngoba we are now going to the peak of the infections. Others agree that it is important that we reopen our schools because of other effects kuma-learners uma ngabe engekho esikoleni. Let me first indicate ukuthi or contextualize ukuthi ukuvala kwekole kwaku-informwa yini. It was never informed by ukuthi sifuna kuphele infection. As you all know ukuthi i-COVID-19 has no cure for now. So it's really an issue of trying to arrest spread sayo and stuff like that. But ayikho cure ye-COVID-19. So ukuvalwa kwekole should be understood within the context of the nationwide lockdown, as explained by President Ramaphosa, as well as Minister of Health, Minister Mkhize, Dr. Mkhize, who have been saying to public the main rationale behind the lockdown was to allow izwe ukuthi liziprepare, kakhulukazi the health system, to prepare so that it can be able to withstand the amount of infections as swabona manje qala ukuthi akhuphuke. There was never a debate ukuthi whether or not we'll at some stage reach a peak. We have always known that ukuthi at some stage infections azokhuphuka, but lockdown was important so that we prepare health system in particular, yes, but also to gain more knowledge in terms of how then to deal with this pandemic. We are wiser than March 2020 when the president actually announced a nationwide lockdown. So ukuvala kwekole, like all other sectors, was in that context. And later on, the government said probably i-system yethu isingcono kakhulu compared to February or March at the beginning of this year. There are sectors of the economy and other sectors in society which now should be gradually opened so that the country continue to function, because you can't have a country that remains on lockdown forever. So we had to open sectors of the economy under the risk-adjusted approach. That is why we have been moving from level 5, we are now at level 3. So the context of ukuvala kwekole should first be understood in that way. Now, why open schools? First and foremost, we believe that the schools have a role to play in fighting COVID-19. In the province of KwaZulu Natal, 70% of our schools are in rural areas, from impoverished families, from impoverished communities. That will be 75%. So the overwhelming majority of our kids, you find them in those areas, and those are kids that during lockdown you found them on the streets, beyidlalela with no precautionary measures. Even abanye babo emakhaya uyabona ukuthi isimo sinzima, such that they really stand i-risk enkulu yama-infections compared to ukuba seyikoleni. So we thought ukuthi uma ngabe si-prepare iy'kole zethu zibe indawo e-safe for learners as well as educators, it will be better kunokuthi baqhubeke bahlale emgaqweni benze zonke lezi ezinye izinto ngaphandle kokuthi bazivikele. But equally, izikole, in our view, will be the platform where we spread more knowledge on the fight against COVID-19, because into ebalekile kakhulu njengoba silwa nalelo bhubhane olungenalo ikhambi lokuthi silaphe is knowledge. Kubalekile ukuthi abantu sibanikeze knowledge enkulu ukuthi yini lesibhekene nayo, ama risk akhona athini, singazivikela kanjani. So that ungezoba nomuntu emakhaya ikakhulukazi ozothi hayi leli gciwane labantu abathile abafundile abanemali or abebala elithize. So we needed to impart knowledge to these learners so that as they go back home they are able to also badlulise umyalezo kubazali kanjalo nemphakathi ephuma kuyo. So that's one aspect that motivated ukuvula kwekole. But okwesibili ucwaningo liyaveza ukuthi ikakhulukazi abantwana from historically disadvantaged areas, i-UNICEF yakhipha ama-findings athi abantwana from impoverished families and communities, the longer they stay outside school, the less they are likely to come back to school. So uma bagcina bengaphandle nje, the chances become slim and slimmer for them to come back to school. But also there is a psychological impact kuma learners eyenzekayo uma ngabe bengaphandle esikoleni, and they continue to be susceptible to all manner of abuse that we see in society, be it gender-based violence or any sort of abuse. Some of them besibabona emaphepheni nakuma-news now sebedayisa ugwayi emgaqweni because they need to find something to live on. So ukubona ukuhlala kwabo ekhaya really was more disadvantageous than ukuba sesikoleni. So we had to take into account all those factors, including the fact ukuthi kwi-system yethu i-reality ukuthi we haven't succeeded 100% ukuthi sibe ne-system efanayo yokufunda in the country. You still have learners in private school, in historically advantaged government school, the former Model Cs, that have resources. So bona ngesikhathi se-lockdown they continue ukuthi bafunde through visual lessons and other things. But those children of the working class in particular who rely in public ordinary schools, they couldn't really benefit the same way laba abanye ababenefita ngayo. So logo ukuqhubeka kwabo ukuhlala ekhaya will perpetuate inequalities which we want to defeat in society. So taking into account all those factors and the fact that the country is gradually also opening up the rest of the sectors, we took a decision together with the unions and SGPs in the sector to say it is indeed important that we open schools. The debate really has been around the issue of at what stage do you open schools? Not necessarily at what stage, but what types of schools are you opening? To open the schools that were in this in a way ayizona ngoJanuary before sibe nenkinga ye-COVID-19, or there are other extra measures that you need to put in place. That is why kwi-sector savumelana ngesikubiza ngama-non-negotiables ukuthi each and every school in the country should comply with these non-negotiables before it can be opened. That include ukuthi funa sithengele abantwana ama-mask, othisha ama-mask, ensure social distancing esikoleni, sanitize isikole every day, isikole must clean, provide water, and ensure that there is not a single day la kungekho khona amanzi esikoleni. We provide chemical toilets la senenkinga khona ama-ablution facilities. We screen everyone ongena esangweni. So those are the things that we agreed on as non-negotiables in the sector. So each and every school had to comply with that. And we have really worked hard in the province of KwaZulu Natal to make sure that all our schools are compliant with that. Yes, there are challenges, particularly the infrastructure challenges. Infrastructure challenges are historical. See, inherit a system that was basically a system a differentiator between ibala. So abebala limnyama kakhulukazi, there were no resources spent to develop iy'kole abaphuma kuzona, both infrastructure as well as other resources zokuthi bafunde, compared to the former Model Cs as well as the private school. So yes, there are schools in the province where we are born with infrastructure still need to be rehabilitated. So we accede to that, but those things will take some time. We are not going to correct them within this space. It will become worse now because some of the funds that we had earmarked for such rehabilitation of schools and all of that, we have had to reprioritize them so that we we procure all these essentials to fight COVID-19 in all our schools. We think that our schools are a better place for learners to be. They are a safe environment for learners to be. Yes, now we're dealing with, as the infections rise in society, in communities, that is also reflected in the schooling environment. But so far, in all the over 300 cases of infections that have been reported to relate to teachers as well as learners in the province of KwaZulu Natal, we have not had a single one where the spread was recorded to have happened within the school premises. So the infections happened outside the school premises, but because of the measures that we had to put in place to make sure that our schools are safe, we were able to detect some of them to say, no, go and test because we are exhibiting some symptoms, the temperature is high and all of that. Others obviously did test voluntarily. So we are quite happy that so far all the measures that we have put in our schools have stood the test of time. There are incidences where really we got a serious scare. There's an instance in one school where the food handler was in school for the whole week. So she went to test on a Monday, but was in school for the whole week. She didn't say that she had gone for test. And then the results were back on Saturday. And the result indicated that she tested positive. So for the whole week, she has been in school carrying the virus. So we had to test all the learners that had contact with him because bayaphakela umama baphakelayo. And fortunately, because umama wayekwazile ukuthi alandele yonke imigomo esasithe akayilandela kanjalo nabantwana did the same. All the results came back negative of the learners. So it proves ukuthi if sonke silandela izinto okuthiwa sizilandela imigomo ebekiwe ngaphakathi esikoleni, we'll be able to contain the spread of the virus. We have had such instances like iLembe again. There was kunothisha ababili abahamba ngemoto eyi-1 ukuya esikoleni every day. One tested positive but the other tested negative, and it proves ukuthi bobabili bayakwazi ukuzivikela, because the philosophy is that treat yourself as if you are infected and assume the next person as if he or she is also infected, so that we as protector but also we protect nabanye from when. And we believe that so far, indeed, our schools do remain a safe place for the learners to be. There are instances where it has really been stop and go because of the historical challenges that we have, particularly around the issue of water. Many communities in the province of KwaZulu Natal, particularly in Zululand, Uku, as well as Umkhanyakude districts, are experiencing challenges of water. It's known. It's challenges of communities, and those challenges, because schools are in communities, they will also reflect the challenges that are in communities there. So you will find an instance where there is water today, tomorrow there's a shortage of water because one communities will have assisted themselves with water during night, such that by the time the school open tomorrow there is no water, and the capacities of municipalities to provide water in terms of our schedule is quite limited. They are also struggling to provide water to communities as expected. Now, with the addition of schools and in the manner in which we want, they are quite suffocating. So we have had instances where it has been stop and go, because there will be water today, 2 days down the line there will be no water. So we'll have to wait for the municipality again to come and deposit water into our schools. There are challenges where pollution facilities have not been up to standard, and we have managed to deploy chemical toilets in those schools. The issue of static water tanks where there is no running water. So we have really prepared our schools in a manner in which we think makes them much better place compared to the streets where you find these learners when they're not in school, and in other places such as the malls and all these places where people go to when they are not engaged in the schooling environment. Currently, we are working towards phasing in grade 11 and 6, which will be coming back on the 6th of July. And again, we have undertaken the same preparations. We must indicate that grade R will also be coming back probably in a week time or two. We have deviated a bit from the national instruction, which said they bring back grade 11, 6, and grade R on the 6th, because KZN is the biggest system in the country. We have 2.8 million learners. We have 90,053 teachers in the system, 6,148 schools. So it's quite a big system, and we really had to plead to say, can we be allowed to phase them in this fashion so that we cycle in grade 11 and 6 first. Then a week later or two, we can then bring in grade R, so that we don't bite what we cannot chew. We want to make sure that the two grades that are coming back are able to cycle like we have done with grade 7 and 12. Then we'll phase in other grades as directed by the national minister. Some of the people obviously will continue to question our ability to do so. We just want to call for cooperation, because the more we pull into different directions, the more we become endangered towards this virus. So if we can pull our efforts together and make sure that parents as well as communities also do play their role, because once these learners are outside the school premises, they are no longer within our control as Department of Education. As to what they do and what happens to them after that, is really beyond our control. So that is why we are saying to parents, play your role also. Make sure that learners are within are indoors, within your yard. They don't go and just play outside in places that are not safe. So it will really call for a greater cooperation for us to defeat this scourge. In the province of KwaZulu Natal, we have said all those who are back in school will be fed within school premises, but those that are not yet back, they will have to come and collect the parcels, the food parcels, as it were. So it's either the learner will come or the parent will come and take that portion for that particular week, so that they can be able to be fed even when they are not at home. So that is the route that we have taken throughout the country. So it's not only the issue of KwaZulu Natal. All provinces are doing the same.
There has been incidents regarding the KZN schools vandalism. Umnyango wezemfundo, what are the steps inyathelo noma izinqumo enizithathayo ukulungisa ukuthi le nto ingaqhubeki?
Well, as long as our communities really don't stand up and say enough is enough, and we're now taking the role to protect our schools, we'll continue to limp from one challenge to another as a department. We have tried really so much, including now we have started the process of refencing our schools, because some of the fence, by the way, in many of our schools, yabulawa yantshontshwa yomphakathi, amalungu omphakathi. So we are refencing our schools in a much better way now. We have employed what we call community safety volunteers, so that each and every school at least kube khona umuntu esangweni ozokwazi ukubheka ukuthi kwenzakalani. We are working with the police ukuthi silinke iy'kole zethu with our police stations. There's continuous police visibility as well as patrolling. But all those measures will prove to be inefficient if there is no active role by the communities, because these criminals who are targeting our schools reside in communities. They plan these things in communities, they execute them in our schools and go back to communities to sell whatever they will have stolen from our schools. That is why we are saying to communities, don't be a market for stolen properties. Isolate these criminals, give necessary information to the police so that we are able to start sending a strong message that our schools are not playgrounds for criminals. We have also set up a team at a provincial level composed of DOE, the police, as well as the NPA, to ensure that in cases where there have been arrests, at least we're able to move fast in terms of prosecution, and hopefully we secure conviction so that we start again sending the message to public and to criminals to say, we are now seriously dealing with anyone who will be found to have burglared or conducted any criminal act in our schools. But at the center of winning this battle against vandalism is community involvement and active participation. Because at the end of the day, schools are centers for community development, so they should be protected by these community members. into esidriver kakhulu njengomnyango kule term ikakhulukazi will be ukuzama ukulinganisa ukufunda nokufundisa kwizikole zonke zaKwaZulu Natal. Siyazi ukuthi ihistory yethu iyasitshela ukuthi kunezikole ikakhulukazi former model cities nama private school la kwakufaka khona ama resources amaningi ne-standard semfundo siphezulu, kepha lezi zikole zasemalokishini nasemakhaya kube zindonga nje nochoki nothisha phambi kwezingane, kungabi khona ama resources anele ukuthi uplift i-standard sokufunda nokufundisa sabantwana basemakhaya nasemalokishini. Kungakho-ke sithathe nje isinqumo sokuthi kule term sizobhekana ngqo nokufula izinga lokufunda nokufundisa ezikoleni zasemakhaya nasemalokishini ukuze umntwana osemakhaya angabi nengcindezi yokuthi ufuna ngiyofunda kwi-private school noma former model C school ukuze ngizothola imfundo engcono. Akayithole ekhona emakhaya, akayithole ekhona elokishini. And moving also with time, sirealizile ukuthi i-technology is playing a huge role in teaching and learning, but also ukudevelopa umntwana from a very young age. Kungako sithathe isinqumo sokuthi will invest more on technological advances in rural as well as in township schools, so that they can also be exposed on the new methods of teaching and learning, on the modernized way of searching information, but also of developing as learners, because siyafisa ukuthi at some stage sibe nabantwana abasemakhaya who can compete on international competitions, maths and science and all these gateway subjects and subjects that are demanded by the economy in the current period, but compete with the rest of their peers in the world. Bebe bephuma emakhaya. That's why sithathe i-decision ukuthi i-focus yethu will be on that one. Ngonyaka odluleke salauncha i-program of e-learning endaweni yasemadungeni, isikole semakhaya ngapha under Herigwala district, and we are now building on that package to ensure ukuthi izikole zethu zonke ziyakwazi ukuthi ziconnecteke. There are schools that are located in areas where there is a problem of network connectivity, and lezo izikole because asifunanga ukuthi nazo zisale ngemuva in terms of ubuxhakaxhaka bokufunda. Kungako sibe silontsha le program noma si-unveila le program ebesiyenza eBergville under esikoleni uBulinga High, okuyi-program ye-technology naye e-learning, se-package ye-e-learning, but ekwazi ukusebenza even offline yona, because sifuna ukuthi kungabi ne-problem yokuthi isikole sethu sisendaweni engenayo connectivity, therefore we can't empower the learners and teachers of that particular school. So we're going to slowly building a very strong package of ICT as well as e-learning in the province of KwaZulu Natal. With the program Esasi Unveila Ebulinga High, we have targeted 100 schools in this year, both Uthugela district as well as in Mumzinyati. But the intention is to cover the whole province, but also gradually go down to primary levels, because we want our learners to be exposed at a very young age, including a number of initiatives. That is why sithathe this decision yokuthi sizopilota i-program of coding and robotics at primary level. Yabona kunesithombe esivamisa ukucirculate ku-Facebook where abantwana, I think abase-China laba, at a very young age, you can see they are focused, science lab, computer lab, quite focused. Bese kuba khona lezi zangakithi ngapha ziyajuluka yabona zimanzi iphethe iBhayibheli emgaqweni. Uyabona ukuthi labo bantu bazokhula ngendlela engafani. So now we want our learners at a very young age to be also exposed on the advances that are happening in the country, to start at a young age ukuthi babe innovative and all of that. So we're driven by that. That is why even nezikole esifuna ezintsha esifuna ukuzakha are not just going to be schools ezineyindonga no chalk and no teacher nengane bese sithi isikole. We want all our schools to be to have full package. Each and every school okufuna sakhe efuna ibe ne computer center or media center. It must have a science laboratory. It must have a library, so that our learners bakwazi ukuyo researcher and all of those things. We want to build these goals as a package egcwele, but also we'll be gradually introducing technical subjects. Again, targeting these rural and township schools, because that's where our focus is. And the introduction of these subjects is to make sure ukuthi abantwana bafunda izinto as in line with the demands of the economy, because we don't want to give out learners that are unemployable because we have not given them a set of skills and competencies that are required by the economy. That's why we're now introducing at a faster pace the technical subjects in a number of our schools. From next year, we have to identify them across the country, across the province, to say when Gonyagoza for an operation these subjects, and we are going to support you. We are going to give you necessary resources for those subjects. So we're basically driven by that. We're working also with Vodacom on the issue of a program, Coding Like a Girl, quite exciting program targeting 900 learners, girl learners in the province from impoverished background. So those are the packages which will be building on as the province of KwaZulu Natal. We also now have managed to zero rate our KZN Funda portal, which has the curriculum content from grade R up to grade 12. So now it's available free of charge. And we will continue to build on these ICT packages so that our learners across the province, irrespective of where they are able to have access to them, are able to use them for their own development and advances in life, so that we are able to equalize the standard of teaching and learning. We will be working hard and investing on a number of other programs so that really teaching and learning becomes easy for teachers as well as learners. We want accountability to teachers and say we want better results. We must also be accountable to say how have we supported them so that it doesn't become the issue of teacher pay. We want better results, yes, but we must give them necessary resources for them to produce better results. That is why we are really now focused. We have even changed the vision of the department to become an innovative hub for quality teaching and learning, which must happen really at a classroom. So everything that we do should have impact at a classroom level. So when a particular unit wants a particular project to be done, the first question, how does it impact in a classroom level? How does it improve teaching and learning at a classroom level? Because that's where activities happen. That's ours is about teaching and learning, and every other thing that we do supports teaching and learning happens in a classroom environment. So that's why we want to improve the classroom, want to improve the school environment, and then gradually we invite stakeholders and communities also to take active participation in terms of education, because learners must be educated within the school premises, but also when they get home, they must get support in terms of education.